Am I the asshole for refusing to let my parents be official witnesses to my wedding? Okay, some events surrounding my wedding a week ago has me feeling guilty over the choices that I've made, and now I'm wondering if I'm a terrible child for being so harsh to my parents. I'm sorry if this is a long one, but I really need to get it all out, and I'd appreciate some outside perspective on this. For starters, I, 28F, just got married to the love of my life, 33F, about a week ago, after being engaged for 2 years and together for 6. Everything was great. We had an elopement-style wedding where only our closest friends and some of my family members were invited. We had an awesome photographer who made us feel comfortable in front of the camera, and our celebrant shed a tear for us during our vows. However, there was one part during the whole thing that has me second-guessing myself. My wife and I were told to prepare our own witnesses for the ceremony, both to witness the vow exchange and to sign our marriage certificates. As I'm not close with my parents, and my wife's homophobic family members did not attend either, I suggested electing 2 of our closest friends to be our witnesses. In the beginning, my wife was slightly hesitant about the idea, citing that my parents would be hurt that they weren't chosen to be the witnesses. We're both from Asian families, and filial piety is heavily emphasized in our culture. It is usually assumed that one parent from each side would be a witness by default as a way to show respect and gratitude to them for raising us. I told my wife that, although I'm grateful to my parents for making sure I had a roof over my head growing up, they were never really there for me in any other way, so I didn't want them involved on our special day. Our friends, on the other hand, were there for me through my deepest struggles, and we've been through thick and thin during our university days. To me, having them witness our marriage is significantly more meaningful than having my parents do so. A bit of background on my family: my parents weren't chronically abusive per se, but they weren't the greatest either. Growing up, I was the black sheep, the one who was punished for things I didn't do, the one who was punished for things my brother did and blamed me for, the one who was repeatedly told that I was a disappointment to the family. My mom even told me that she wished I was born a boy instead, that way she wouldn't have to deal with having a useless daughter, according to her. As you can probably guess, she loves my brother and pampers the life out of him, though she would blatantly deny any accusations of that nature. My dad never said anything of the sort to me, but he sat and watched silently as my mother berated me, never bothering to speak up. He also used to hit us and yell at us whenever he was in a foul mood, so I learned to hide from him at home. My mom and dad also hated each other, and that led to screaming and insult matches on a near daily basis at home. I remember waking up some days and the house would be a complete mess, as if a tornado had run through it. Clothes in random piles across the floor and down the stairs, broken dishes in the kitchen, and 2 fuming adults glaring daggers at one another while I silently cleaned up after them. I learned pretty early on during my teen years to just try to tune out everything they say, but I can't deny that some of the things that they said really got to me. After I graduated high school, I wanted to just start working, save up, and move out of my parents' house, but my dad told me he wasn't allowing me to work, as he wanted me to obtain a degree. We went back and forth on this, and eventually I agreed to further my studies. When the opportunity arose for me to attend university in a state 4 hours away from my hometown, I jumped at the chance. I took out a student loan to pay my tuition fees, and my dad paid for my dorm rent and daily expenses until I completed my degree. During my degree, I met a group of wonderful people, and we've been inseparable ever since. It was also during my university days where I met my now wife. After leaving my broken nest, I remained low contact with my family, only texting them during important events, or to let them know I'm going back during breaks. My mom contacted me maybe twice during my whole degree, and my dad calls me every other week to complain about how I was wasting his money whenever I went shopping for groceries. I admit, I spent a little more than I should have when buying stuff, like swapping out store brand cereals for the name brand, and buying snacks like popcorn or a $5 bottle of orange juice when I could probably go without. I was spiteful, and that was the only way I knew how to get back at him. Needless to say, I was immature back then. Sorry if I'm ranting, but I just want to paint a clearer picture of what my relationship with my parents was like back then. After I graduated and got my degree, I settled down in that state and never moved back home. I visited maybe once every 3 months, and remained civil but distant with them. I came out to them then too, but they brushed me off and never took me seriously until I brought my now wife to meet them. Fortunately, they were too busy obsessing over their son's love life to nitpick mine, which was perfectly fine with me. The less involved they are with me, the better. Fast forward to a month or so ago before the wedding, after discussion with my wife and her eventually agreeing to choose our friends as our witnesses, I broke the news to my parents. My dad just remained silent as usual. My mom was confused, asking me why, and I was uncomfortable with telling her how I really felt and wanted to avoid confrontation, so I said that since my wife's family are not attending, it makes more sense to have our friends do it. She didn't like that answer but accepted it. Now, to the wedding. Before the ceremony, I met up with our photographer and she greeted me with a hug. Mind you, my parents are repulsed by the idea of any sort of affection, especially physical, but I could see my mom seething out of the corner of my eye. After conversing with my photographer for a few minutes and she went off to start setting up her gear, I approached my family to greet them and thank them for coming. My mom said sarcastically, "Guess not all of us are getting hugs, huh?" I rolled my eyes in secret and gave her a half-hearted one-arm hug, all the while just begging for someone to save me. Thankfully, the celebrant came and swooped me away for some last-minute signatures. I also requested for the celebrant to remind everyone to have their phones put away until the end of the ceremony, which she happily obliged. I told all attendees beforehand too, but I just wanted to make sure everyone remembers to do so. After that, she went into the room to get everyone ready, and my wife and I stood at the door and awaited our entrance into the venue. I was dizzy with happiness looking at my gorgeous partner, and when the doors swung open and the music we chose started to play softly over the speakers, the moment felt perfect. Until we started our march in, and I saw my parents and aunt with their phones out and pointed our way, flashes on and everything. My friends, thankfully, had their phones away. I made eye contact with them, and they gave us apologetic smiles. I gave them a small thumbs up, and suppressed the anger that I could feel rising at the back of my throat. My wife squeezed my hand, and I gave her a small squeeze back, letting her know I was okay. We walked down the aisle together, determinedly not looking anywhere in my family's direction. Our photographer moved quick to get shots of us without phone cameras in our faces, bless her. We managed to reach the front without much fuss, and the rest went amazingly. We had tears in our eyes while reading our vows and affirming our love to one another, and all felt right in the world when we sealed it all with a kiss. Our friends cheered and hooped for us, and I never smiled bigger in my entire life. The whole wedding party enjoyed dinner afterwards at a restaurant deeply favored by my wife and I, and my best man even prepared some games to iron out the tension in the air. My friends know me well enough to know when I'm angry, even if I'm not showing it. I was still quite irritated at the phone incident, but I thought maybe the celebrant forgot to remind everyone and was about to let it go, until I quietly asked one of my friends about it and they told me that the celebrant did tell everyone to put their phones away, right before we entered the room. I just pushed my feelings aside then, not wanting a sour mood for the rest of the night. But all of it just reaffirmed my decision to not have my parents involved in my wedding. They couldn't even respect the one simple rule we had for everyone. However, one of my friends told me that she saw my parents shedding tears after the ceremony, when they were looking over our marriage certificates. Apparently, they were stood over our papers for quite some time, just staring and taking pictures. This revelation has left me feeling slightly guilty over my decision, but another part of me feels justified. I'm torn over feeling like I'm finally choosing for myself instead of having to tiptoe over their feelings all the time, and feeling like I've let them down in some way. Maybe it's not a big deal to some, but in Asian cultures, it is quite a big deal. My friend told me that they would probably be ashamed to have to tell the rest of the family that they weren't chosen to be the official witnesses of their